Come see us on tour in Baltimore, Hartford, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, San Jose, Toledo, and Bakersfield. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Trump halted military aid and intelligence sharing to Kiev, and now he's reversing it just because Zelensky agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, when he knows there's not a snowball's chance in hell that Russia would agree when they're making major gains in Kursk. Is Trump joking? Here we go.
Those talks that happen in Saudi Arabia are being treated as if they were successful, because it's being reported that in exchange for Kiev agreeing to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia, that the U.S. has decided to lift its ban on military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Now, I guess this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise based on the initial commentary, right? When we had the initial report saying that these things were being halted, the Trump administration officials that commented on this were very careful with their wording. They said, it's a temporary pause on intelligence sharing, right? It's a temporary halt to military aid. And they kind of put it out there that their goal at the moment was to really put pressure on Zelensky and his government to get them to act in the way that the Trump administration wanted, to get them to want to pursue peace. And you're telling me that you put all of that pressure on them and now you're willing to undo all of it because they agreed to a 30-day ceasefire? Like, is no one in the Trump administration paying attention here? And I just love the idea that the US is going to approach Russia and that they are going to tell them, hey, we've got Ukraine to agree to a 30-day ceasefire. Look at how smart and how great we are. And Russia is going to look at them and go, hey, we're on the brink of not only retaking the Kursk region, right, wiping out Kiev's forces there, but we're also on the brink of approaching key towns in the Donbass region. Why would we agree to a 30-day ceasefire? Like, are you kidding me? Not only would that keep Russia from being able to advance at a time when it's making significant movement on the ground, but it also, because as a reminder, what did Kiev just get? They got a lifting on the pause of military aid from the U.S. So the U.S. is literally saying, let's stop fighting for 30 days and we're going to send Kiev more military aid. So the exact thing that Russia has been saying this entire time that is unacceptable to them, which is a frozen conflict in which these NATO members are able to rearm and to rebuild Kiev's military, that is the thing that Russia has been saying. And now that's the thing that the U.S. is proposing.
So what is in it for Putin to go along with this, I guess, is the bigger question. U.S.-backed ceasefire offer poses dilemma for Putin. He recently rejected the idea of an interim truce in Ukraine, but he wants to maintain his relationship with President Trump. So, as recently as January, President Vladimir Putin of Russia emphatically rejected the idea of a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine. But after a month in which President Trump turned American foreign policy on his head and Russian forces made progress in a key battle, the Kremlin now appears keen, at least, to entertain the 30-day ceasefire proposal made by Ukraine and the United States on Tuesday. Does Trump have secret plans to whack Zelensky? But that would be a tragedy. Dmitry S. Peskov, Mr. Putin's spokesman, told reporters on Wednesday that the Kremlin was carefully studying the outcome of Tuesday's talks between the United States and Ukraine and their call for a month-long ceasefire. He said he expected the United States to inform Russia in the coming days of the details of the negotiations that took place and the understandings that were reached. So, he raised the possibility of another phone call between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump, signaling that the Kremlin saw the ceasefire proposal as just part of a broader flurry of diplomacy. Mr. Putin has seen a dizzying reversal in his geopolitical fortunes over the last month as Mr. Trump realigned American foreign policy in Russia's favor, antagonized U.S. allies, and excoriated President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine at the White House. So, a dizzying reversal of fortune? So you're saying he stopped winning the war because he's been winning that war? Well, I don't understand. What is the reversal of fortune? He's been winning the war. You mean the reversal of fortune with President Trump saying that we should end the war? You mean that kind of thing? I don't know what they mean by that. I really don't know. They better not be setting us up for a false flag.
Yeah.
Just to use our own equipment on us. You know what I mean?
Well, we're going to rearm them, and then what? They're going to sell half of it again?
Yeah. But the emergence of a joint ceasefire proposal from the United States and Ukraine complicates things for Mr. Putin. It deepens the tension between his desires for a far-reaching victory in Ukraine and for close ties with Mr. Trump. Oh, wait a minute. I thought it was Trump that was buddying up to, but now the New York Times is saying that it's Putin who wants to make sure he stays on the good side of Trump. I thought it was the other way. I thought it was backwards. I thought it was Trump trying to make sure he stayed on the good side of Putin. But the New York Times is now saying it's the exact opposite. Isn't that weird?
Oh, maybe he gave him the P-tape back, and that's why.
They are going to proceed with joining AAA in case they need roadside assistance, though. While Mr. Putin says he wants to end the war as soon as possible, Putin has signaled he will not stop fighting until he extracts major concessions from the West and from Kiev, including a pledge that Ukraine will not join NATO and that the alliance will reduce its presence in Central and Eastern Europe. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What's in it for him?
Oh, just another point here. It's the Ukraine. You know how they say it's not
That's
the
right.
Ukraine, it's Ukraine? No, it means the borderland. So it's that's some lie they made up.
Yep.
They're trying to push this bullshit. The Ukraine.
The Ukraine.
Kiev.
It's Kiev. It's the Ukraine. On January 20th, when he congratulated Mr. Trump on his inauguration, Putin made clear that the goal of any Ukraine talks must not be a short ceasefire, not some kind of respite. Russia, he said, sought a long-term peace based on respect for the legitimate interests of all people, all nations who live in the region. Analysts say Putin's opposition to a temporary ceasefire stemmed from the simple calculation that with Russian forces gaining on the battlefield, Moscow would only give up its leverage by stopping the fighting without winning concessions. So they're not going to, why would he give that? So why would Putin want to do this? Why would he want to do that when Putin's on the march, they're winning, and Ukraine's losing? And why wouldn't
he still wants to talk to Trump? So what is that? What does that mean? A secret plan? Why does everything have to be a secret?
So Ukraine set to lose Kursk pocket its foothold inside Russia. So they're on their way to losing. February 12th phone call between Putin and Trump and the White House subsequent alignment with Russia and the United Nations and elsewhere may have affected Putin's calculus by making him more eager to stay on Mr. Trump's good side. Analysts say, I thought Trump was just Putin's lackey and does whatever he says. But apparently, it's Putin who wants to stay on Trump's good side. Isn't that weird?
Wait, I thought Elon was in charge of all of them.
Yeah. Isn't that this is the New York Times saying this? So they've been telling me for 8 years that Trump is Putin's lackey, and now all of a sudden they're telling me that Putin is eager to stay on Trump's good side.
Hey, did Israel tell the New York Times to write that as a reward for Trump being a good boy?
I wonder. A political analyst in Moscow said the Kremlin could be tempted to accept a truce that would be tactically unfavorable but strategically favorable in order to show that it's a peacemaker. In another sign of Moscow's charm offensive directed at the Trump camp, Russia's foreign ministry released a 90-minute interview on Wednesday that the foreign minister Lavrov gave to 3 American video bloggers, including the former Fox News personality Andrew Napolitano. I was invited to that. Couldn't go. Mr. Lavrov, speaking English, praised the Trump administration for reversing the Democrats' departure from Christian values and said Russia was ready for the normal relations that the United States was offering. How could they have a charm offensive and not invite Martha Stewart? Mr. Putin's calculus could also be affected by Russia's progress in recent days in pushing Ukrainian troops out of Kursk, the Russian border region where Ukraine occupied several hundred square miles of territory in a surprise incursion last August. Mr. Zelensky said he had planned to use that land as a bargaining chip in future talks, but the Kremlin signaled that it would refuse to negotiate so long as Ukraine held that territory. With the Kursk region mostly back in Russian hands, Putin no longer risks losing face by agreeing to a ceasefire that would leave Ukraine in control of the swath of Russian territory. Ukraine launches. So here's the thing: Ukraine launches massive. So what is the date on this? March 11th. Ukraine launches massive drone strike on Moscow ahead of U.S. peace talks.
Is it massive? Because it looks like something splattered on the side of a building, and that's about it.
That's not Kid Rock's hotel room. That is the resounding boom of the war industry trying to impede any effort towards peace. That's what that is. That's what that is. Trump. So Danny Haifong tweets out, Trump and his team just announced a farcical ceasefire with Ukraine, and all the warmongers are falling into line. The ball is not in Russia's court. The U.S. is the root cause of the conflict to start with. Ukraine was attacking Moscow and killing innocents in Kursk during these farcical talks. So while they're having these peace talks, they're actually bombing Moscow. Who was Ukraine? The U.S. hasn't negotiated in good faith. In fact, it has yet to offer one concession despite being defeated by Russia. The U.S.'s warmongering elite can't be trusted ever, says Danny Haifong. So here's Ursula von der Leyen. The ball is now in Russia's court. Emmanuel Macron. The ball is clearly in Russia's court. That's asshole. The ball is always in Russia's court. Secretary Marcos. The ball is now in Russia's court.
Great.
I think the ball gag is in. When are you guys going to figure out, when you get the memo, put it in your own words? They just use the same phrase. They get the memo and then they just repeat it. The ball's in your court, in Russia's court.
Yeah.
So
I think there's balls in Rubio's mouth.
So I agree. So the point is, it's really in the United States and Ukraine. They're the ones who provoked this war. They're the one who is bombing Moscow as they're trying to do peace talks. Anyway, okay, over to. So it's weird. Trump is going to start arming Ukraine again. That's also weird. But that's just a giveaway to the military-industrial complex. That's all that is. That's okay. I'm gonna do my corruption. That's just corruption. That's all that is.
Well, because we know that assurances that it would be spent in Israel like he intended.
Right. So of course they're going to take that. And we know that they've been, at least half the stuff we sent them, they're reselling on the black market. Come see us on tour in Baltimore, Hartford, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, San Jose, Toledo, and Bakersfield. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.